Lockheed Martin runs fancy commercials on fission reactors and other stuff that makes them look cool and scientific, like they have all the answers to life's problems. The military-industrial complex wants a complete two-class system and to microchip you. This stuff is overkill in my opinion. Tesla had far way better, simpler concepts in the 1930s. This deceit by the military complex has been going on for quite some time. Like I said earlier, my grandfather helped to break Japanese code for the U.S. Navy in World War II. Ted Gunderson exposed that they had it broken prior to the bombing of Pearl Harbor, and it potentially could have athwarted the attack, but they allowed it to happen so they could justify using the atomic bomb. There's way too much to go into on 9/11, but I believe it was pre-orchestrated and they had prior knowledge of it and also allowed it to happen. This allowed for our Fourth Amendment to be raped and an exponential increase in government oversight and trillions of dollars of spending, bolstering once again the military-industrial complex. This subsequently leveraged our country into insurmountable debt and paved the way for the New World Order. If you don't believe that it was pre-orchestrated, search Alex Jones July 25, 2001. He lays out their plan to a T and how they would use bin Laden. Donald Trump, yes, our current President of the United States, also had prior knowledge and boasted about it in his book written 19 months prior to the attack. He also mentioned bin Laden by name. I encourage you to search this on the internet and see for yourself. I saw some coverage on this in the media, but wonder why it was not brought up prior to the election. Next major cover-up is electropollution. I read the book The Body Electric, Biomagnetism and the Foundation of Life by Dr. Robert Becker and Gary Selden in 2015. This is definitely my favorite book of all time. Too much to go into, but I really encourage you to read this. It really changed my life and made me look at a lot of things differently. Like I said, it had a profound impact on my life and the way I viewed medical science, the human body, and other aspects of physics, specifically biomagnetism and our reptilian and other regenerative traits. It's definitely my hands-down favorite book of all time. It made me realize that humans are essentially robots. Keep in mind that it was written in 1989, long before the advent of Wi-Fi, 5G, and all the other network, cell phone towers, and electrical infrastructure we have today. The book goes on to talk about advanced psychological warfare being developed by the Pentagon and used against the American people. Yes, our own government using this against us. How demonic is that? It is being developed for various purposes, to control people, to evoke them to rage, to anger, to destroy DNA, to give you cancer. You get the point. They could essentially drop a city block with the push of a button, or evoke a riot, or cause you to have a heart attack, possibly like they did with Andrew Breitbart. Ironically, the book talks about Russia and how their technology is very advanced as well. I got the point that they did not have this in their country for use against their own population. Ultimately, I decided to travel there and see if I noticed any different effects. One of the main reasons I went there was to go to Sergia Posad, a religious monastery, which is also one of the Earth's gate points to various chakras, which is sort of a suppressed science that I'll have to cover later on in another presentation. There's definitely a special energy there. Anyways, when I went there, I felt like I was traveling back to 1994. I felt a huge difference. It was very alarming to me. I also feel similar effects anytime I go out into the ocean on a boat, especially several miles offshore. This is an alarming problem that, in my opinion, will only get worse. I believe electropollution works in conjunction with implantable microchips and possibly cell phones, but ultimately can be used alone. It is part of deep-level MK Ultra mind control programs used by our government. You will never hear about this on the media. The utility companies are all part of it. If you reach out to them, they will deny it causes any deleterious effects and that their utilities operate and function within safe guidelines. They will deny studies that show direct correlations between an increase in suicide rates and cancer rates and living directly under power lines, etc. There are a few countries like Canada and some in Europe and elsewhere that have published studies recognizing the adverse effects of ELF and electropollution. It is, in essence, the U.S. government, or whoever is behind the veil, is building a prison for us to live in. It's kind of like zoo animals born in captivity. They don't even know that they are caged because they've never experienced true freedom. The same is true for kids today. I'm not going to go into talking about the Trilateral Commission, but the plan is to evolve America into a socialistic prison country like ones that already exist. They will use you for what you're worth, watch you have kids, you will pass the ball on to them to become slaves, and they will start to kill you off about 60 or so when you're no longer useful. I ask, is this what God had intended for us? I also postulate that many wealthy neighborhoods are not blanketed by ELFs or electropollution as much as that of the working class towns where the bourgeoisie reside. I feel bad for people who are ridiculed as being part of the tinfoil hat club. People who deny this are either part of it or scared to admit and realize the truth at hand. We live in a feudalistic society where the rich are protected by the police state. All of this advanced psychological warfare is being done to lower our level of consciousness and to kill us off and make us servile slaves. One interesting side note is that I believe there's a potential cover-up about when they took away free analog TV channels and went to an all-digital format. Why did they want this bandwidth? We used to pay for TV by watching the commercials, and now we have to pay for cable and or satellite and watch the propaganda. I choose not to watch this garbage for the exception of my local news syndicates occasionally. There's very little on the internet about this as well, if you search around. Cable and satellite companies are all part of this electropollution conspiracy. They help to build this prison for us to live in. Once the baby boomers go into homes and die off, the younger generation will be completely controlled, indoctrinated, and coerced into going along with the program of mass slavery and communism. The government wants everyone to be living in a high-rise manufactured apartment where you have no freedom and limited mobility in a completely Orwellian society. I postulate that cell phones are already sort of a mark of the beast. There are no longer payphones on the streets anymore. They don't want people to be able to go out at night and look at the stars. They don't want you to have a car either. Instead, you will be forced to use Uber or mass transportation. They will keep you chasing the carrot on the stick and paying you with fiat currency that will eventually crumble or become electronic. You better pay your taxes, you better take your vaccines, eat your poison food, drink your cancer water, and oh yeah, go to vote every 4 years for your puppet master. Meanwhile, the rich elites pay cash and live debt-free. The best advice I can give you is don't take on debt. I absolutely hate and harbor a major disdain for the banks. Also, take care of your body, drink plenty of water, eat less but healthier food, and take care of your teeth. In my opinion, dentists and endodontists have already been covertly microchipping people for quite some time. I believe they have been part of population control and other eugenics programs for years. This is ultimately one way they can get you. If you look into natural dentistry, you will see that there are only a handful of dentists that practice it in the whole entire country, if not the world. It's so important for everyone to stand together and realize who the true enemies are. Humans have so much more potential than we will ever get to realize. A great-minded individual named Andrija Puharich worked with people that could control the weather, the ionosphere, and electrical devices with their minds, as well as other notable psychics. He invented the human microchip, as well as many other notable things that probably remain top secret to this day. He is considered to be the godfather of parapsychology. He was a very, very interesting person, to say the least. For the government and the globalists, microchips and RFDI are the endgame for them. Through MK Ultra mind control programs, they already drive people to commit mass shootings or even suicide, in my opinion. The books The Body Electric and Mass Control I referenced earlier are two great references on this. Do these mass shootings actually happen in all cases? If so, why do we never hear from the assailants? Why do we never hear from the Tsarnaev brother after the Boston bombing? They shot at the boat he was in like 100, 200 times or something like that. It is very evident that the rich want to take people's guns and have broader agendas at hand. They do a good job of dividing everyone against each other and scaring you, trying to take your eye off the ball. We as a people need to stand for our Constitution, especially our Second Amendment rights. The rich absolutely quiver at the sound of the Second Amendment and our illustrious Declaration of Independence. The Second Amendment says a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Our Declaration of Independence says that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter and abolish it, or to institute new government. They try to make gun owners look uneducated. If they come for the Second Amendment, they will come for the First Amendment, and then eventually try to microchip you, like I said. While on the topic of the First Amendment, I recently tried to reach out to the American Civil Liberties Union and couldn't even find a number to get a real person at. I left messages and no one returned my calls. Not sure what this is about, but if I was an illegal immigrant, they probably would have returned my call. I was calling to inquire about the overwhelming push to force people to use electronic communications. Many businesses and government agencies will often defer you and your questions and concerns to a website or email address. Last time I checked, it was not a constitutional mandate to have a computer or to use electronic correspondence. Someday I hope I have the resources to push this issue. I know we live in 2018 and all enjoy the modern conveniences of electronic communications, but unfortunately I see where this is headed. Don't let anyone tell you that you have to use a computer or a smartphone. We need to stand for our rights, and the 10th Amendment, which basically justifies states' rights. We already know that the New World Order is planning to do away with state sovereignty and institute global government. When they do come for people's guns, you will know that a complete all-out takeover isn't far behind. On a state level, they already are doing this. Once the younger wussified voting generation and the minorities control the populace, you will most likely sadly see rights diminish state by state, as they already have started to do in liberal states like Maryland and others. Maryland is also the wealthiest state in the country per median household income. First they will come for high-capacity magazines, then they will come for handguns, and eventually all guns, or to impose strict registration requirements. I'm fortunate to live in Pennsylvania, a state that supports the Second Amendment, and for the most part has exemplary citizens, many of which are NRA members. People often ask me why I'm not a member, mainly because I don't feel that I need them for this right. This right is given to me by God under natural law. Like former NRA President Charlton Heston would say, they're going to have to pry them from my cold, dead hands. I was recently at a gun show here in PA, and there was not any open parking places. The Second Amendment is still alive and well. Sadly, people who are gun owners are most likely on a list. They probably already institute eugenics programs against us and other patriots, so to make sure that either we're killed off, don't have kids, or stay suppressed. They also indoctrinate our youth in the school system to think that guns are bad and scary. Unfortunately, many kids in the public school system didn't grow up with the freedom of going hunting and shooting target for sport that I did. Hunting is also disparaged. When I go to the National Archives building in Washington, D.C. to see our Bill of Rights, our Constitution, and Declaration of Independence, I see kids who have no understanding of the true purpose of the Second Amendment. I have no time to argue with gun grabbers. A side note on high-capacity weapons. If and when things hit the fan as part of some type of mass pandemic, and you go to call the cops, are the phones even going to work? I assure you that if you see a mob of reckless heathens coming down your street, that you and your neighbors are going to want high-capacity magazines to give your families a fighting chance. The sad truth is that it will most likely be militarized police or Chinese soldiers coming for you. Freedom and liberty are not arbitrary, nor is the right to protect ourselves, our family, and our property. It is important to support your local sheriff and know where they stand on various issues. They have a lot more power than most people know. Their authority trumps that of federal agents. Another good book that I read was Are You a David, written by fellow constitutionalist Richard Mack, who I've had the pleasure of speaking with. He's a former DEA agent and sheriff in Arizona. I love to hear this guy speak. He has many great presentations, one of which is called The Power of the County Sheriff. Few out there tell it like him. He is a true patriot and has also been targeted for his beliefs. Typically, anyone who speaks out against oil companies, banks, Zionists, gets killed, driven to suicide, or put in an institution. There's this book. Also a very, very good book. Are You a David? I read it a while back. The rich elites have already left this country in droves. They have a predetermined plan for us constitutionalists, and those they deem to be political dissidents, probably to put us in FEMA camps and kill most of us off, or to take you and your family out in the driveway and execute you so they can give your house to someone else. Why exactly did the government purchase 1.6 billion rounds of ammo for national security a few years ago? You can look this up, by the way. Besides that, the cabal has every facet of your life planned from conception until the funeral home. Eventually, they will attempt to institute selective breeding and forced sterilization. There are probably 7 to 10 subsets of conformity that you already fit into, and eventually they will bring it to 3 or 4 in a complete Orwellian takeover. A few examples of these subsets are a affluent Caucasian that drives a BMW and lives in a 3,000 to 5,000 square foot house. He will inherit money from his parents just in time for his early retirement. Life for him will most likely peak on a Caribbean island vacation in his mid-30s to 40s. Or a young to middle-aged female with credit card debt she accrued while trying to find her place to fit into society's rigid standards. Or a middle-aged African American with a lengthy criminal record. He will never own property and his kids will be slaves. Or a young middle-aged blue-collar union worker who drives a pre-owned vehicle and has a dog. Or a multi-ethnic doctor who is sent here to initiate the New World Order and other socialistic policies so that other people who are supposed to be doctors can stay at home and go golfing or jet set on their inherited wealth. Okay, so you're born, you go to school, you get good grades, you go to a good college, then you have approximately $60,000 to $600,000 in student loans when you graduate. You then begin to climb the corporate ladder. You will earn a predefined range of income, perhaps $16 to $35 an hour. At 35 years old to 45 years old, you will peak in usefulness and income is when you start to reach the top of the corporate ladder. You will never make enough to touch the rich people or their kids. You will never have a beachfront house or a Manhattan apartment or like my dream of owning an organic farm. Even if you save every penny and put the max into your 401k, you will never attain it. Don't be a subservient slave to the rich elite globalists. As I stated earlier, many of the cherry jobs are already hand-me-downs for their kids. I pray that this country is able to change its course away from Zionist control and communistic Fabian socialist policies. I've covered a lot of ground and a lot of various topics. I believe that this is stuff where most of the pushback is, and stuff that no one else seems to talk about. I'm intelligent enough to know that the elite globalists' main rebuttal to my assertions are that they do this for population control. I don't necessarily disagree that our population should be kept in a defined range, but it is bluntly obvious that there is a much more evil, nefarious agenda at hand. These narcissistic control freaks want to play God, stripping us of our dignity and robbing us of our purposeful life. If you want to slowly kill off and poison humans, that is one thing, but to destroy our beautiful earth and innocent wildlife is totally demonic. If they poison our air, our water, and everything else, why do they even require us to wear seatbelts? In my opinion, we need a younger, more charismatic and fearless Bernie Sanders to come along and gut the 1% and to break the chains of big oil and other regressive humanitarian policies. This would probably be the only logical way that we could ever pay back our insurmountable national debt. I see many of these people as the cancer of the earth. The BP Amoco disaster is a defining example of why I say this. With as much money as these people have, there shouldn't be a need for anyone to donate to charities, or should there be a single starving person in Africa. I've talked several times to people that have told me that there's actually third world countries in Africa that use non-GMO food. Go figure. When I reference rich elites, I'm not necessarily referencing semi-affluent people or other successful self-made individuals. I'm talking about people who live in Martha's Vineyard, Cape Cod, Short Hills, New Jersey, as well as other parts of North Jersey, Manhattan, the California coast, and other various island hideaways, as well as other places around the world. These people have sold our country out and most likely keep their cash in offshore banking accounts exempt from paying U.S. taxes. I sincerely worry that they will try to facilitate some type of large-scale terror attack, potentially using chemical or biological weapons against American citizens to institute martial law and another rise of the police state that really already exists. They may attempt to make Muslims and/or constitutionalists look like the perpetrators and to cause some type of McCarthyism event. I believe that they already use nerve agents and chemtrails. If they do this and go into bunkers, I believe that they will kill many of the people who helped them initiate this all in the end. It's kind of like the beginning of the Dark Knight movie, the Batman, when everyone that is taking part in the bank heist gets killed except the Joker. It's kind of scary to think that the U.S. has the biggest stockpile of chemical and biological weapons in Edgewood, Maryland. I can't confirm for sure, but I know that many of these underground facilities are connected. I believe that the ones the Waltons and the Bushes, as well as other notables, have are not connected to the rest. I have so much more that I could talk about, and I try to stay on topic and talk about the things that nobody else seems to bring up. Please know that I have no stake in this, and I'm risking the jeopardy of my life, my future, and my family. I'm 100% self-financed, I have already been suppressed greatly. Mainly what's happened in my trading endeavors and my broader economic concerns, as well as various other things that drove me to this. Also seeing is how they have used drugs to kill off so many young innocent people, particularly with blue eyes. Not to mention all the men and women in our service that they sent into needless wars to die unjustifiably so some greedy pigs could line their pockets and allow many illegal Hispanics to come into this country and gain citizenship and propagate like rabbits. In my opinion, we need to take these people back to where they came from. There's only so much pie and not enough for everyone. The African Americans were slaves and still get stepped on by an unjust criminal justice system. We have the largest prison system in the world. How many people are in there unjustifiably? Do you Americans honestly want your true blue American children competing with anchor babies in the future? Also, please note that I am intelligent enough to dialectically understand that this was never white Anglo people's land to begin with. It was stolen from the Native Americans. In my opinion, they had one of the most beautiful cultures to ever exist in the history of mankind. There's also a major suppression of truth and major push to cover up their history as well. I don't have words for the atrocities of what happened to them. The rich want this dilution so they can prop up their kids and give them the cherry jobs like I mentioned earlier. I believe that it is the 1% that should be thinned out. They have unjustifiable wealth and subsequent power, allowing for the abuses of our Constitution. Please don't think that I'm being anti-Semitic by my remarks against Zionists. I just feel that no one calls them out, lets them get away with a broader agenda to disengage our country from true American fundamentals. Additionally, the swastika is not traditionally a symbol of hate. It is part of sacred geometry that shows up in significant architecture all over the world. It first showed up in Ukraine 5,000 years ago. It's not traditionally a symbol of hate, like I said. There are many accounts of flying saucers and sightings with swastikas on them, similar to a car's emblem. Please view the video on YouTube, Swastika, an ancient symbol used for over 3,000 years. The symbol is very prominent in India and Persian culture. I actually saw it in buildings in Russia that were built in the 16 and 1700s. They actually fought and defeated Hitler and the Nazis in World War II in the 40s, and these were built in the 16 and 1700s. If you search Russian Nazi symbols in like St. Petersburg, you'll see what I'm talking about. Really significant architecture. I've also seen it in American architecture too, believe it or not. I believe ultimately there's a hidden meaning to it and possibly has healing power. It is unfortunate how this country constantly demonizes people of Russian origin and other Slavic nations. This is kind of off topic, but throughout my life experiences of studying various types of governance, I have found the Amish to be the best. I grew up in Pennsylvania Dutch country my whole life. It blows my mind that people with an 8th grade education and people that they call supposed inbreeds seem to have all the right answers to every issue in life. And this is what I do. Any issue arises, ask, what do they do? And it seems like they pretty much have the right answer, like I said, for everything. They live an austere lifestyle where everyone pretty much dresses the same and has the same material things, regardless of how much money they have. I assure you that they are not collectivists or communists. They take great pride in what they wear, their properties, their overall demeanor. They work extremely hard, sun up to sundown in most cases. Their work ethic would embarrass many labor unions. They are very entrepreneurial and have a lot of ingenuity and are exemplary examples of free markets. You never really see them get divorced. They go to church at each other's houses every other week. They live in a very pure culture and don't tolerate societal impurity, especially among women. They don't allow their women to be turned into sex symbols. They have their own bank. They use organic farming and horticultural practices. They don't vaccinate their children. They use holistic homeopathic medicine practices. They make almost everything themselves. They build things to last and are extremely creative and resourceful. They don't connect to the electrical grid, use Wi-Fi, or have an addiction to the internet or other electrical devices. They don't buy into the news media, propaganda, gossip, and are intelligent enough to stay away from nationalism. They have a strong family structure where kids stay with the parents with a very wholesome upbringing. They emphasize a dignified end-of-life plan where elders often die at home with their family caring for them and usually don't send their family to a nursing home. They typically use cash and avoid credit. They never take government welfare or socialized medicine. They sanctify nature and are as humble of God-fearing people as you're going to find. They don't sell their land for development. They don't take advantage of people or resort to violence, and have no crime that I know of. They help each other out when they are struggling. If you're still listening to this, please don't look to Washington, D.C. and our politicians for help and answers to the problems this country faces. These people are so bought and paid for, it's not even funny. We need a total recall and to take this country back before it's too late, if it isn't already. We need people from all walks of life to represent the general public, not just doctors and lawyers. Again, it is disturbing how little information there is out there on the ABRH negative bloodline. There's definitely conspiracies against these people, and it is blatantly obvious that someone is desirous of suppressing the truth from humanity. We need people to stop drifting with the proverbial breeze and to stand for change against this evil system and agenda. We as a people need to stop buying into all these lies and to boycott globalism and the globalist agenda. We were meant to live for so much more. If I get a good response from this massive presentation, here are some future topics that I may look to cover. I know there's a lot more that I could have encompassed in this presentation, but I try to keep it as short as possible. Some of these are suppressed medical science, suppressed energy and magnets, suppressed religion, devaluation of the U.S. dollar and manipulation by the Zionist-controlled Federal Reserve and Treasury Department, energy of the elites, Washington politicos' sexual misconduct, scandals, and dead interns, bank discrimination and manipulation of real estate, how to live an austere life, psychic investigation, alchemy, my hypothetical model of the universe and reason we are here, mind control, aliens, solfeggio scale and violins. I also have aspirations to write a book about my fortuitous life and tell more about me and my story. Someday I may pursue my aspirations for a political career. I would love to see America return to its traditional roots and break free from the reigns of the globalists and communists alike. My goal in doing this presentation is to at least wake up one person to some of the truth that has been suppressed. I hope that this one person will tell others, and so on. If anything happens to me and they try to make up some type of story that I killed myself or God knows what, you'll know it's not true. If you're still listening to this, I sincerely thank you for your time and encourage you to share it with your friends and family. I would save it before it gets potentially removed. If it does get removed, I intend to distribute it at a grassroots level on flash drives, although I will need to raise some money to do this. In the future, I may look to offer some stuff for sale, as well as psychic investigation services. I felt compelled to do an acknowledgement of all the numerous individuals who are purveyors of truth, veritas. These individuals laid the foundation for this presentation. Many I mentioned by name, various others I didn't. There's too many to list. Unfortunately, a lot of them were killed, and numerous others, like me, have been suppressed. I pray that we are able to turn the tide and start a revolution and bring about real change to this country and eventually the world. If you are a like-minded individual looking to join me in my efforts to raise awareness on these various issues as well as others, please do not hesitate to reach out to me via email or through mail. I have many future projects that I would like to work on to continue bringing out the truth. I have improvements I can make from a production standpoint as well. I prefer not to use social networks. My email address is M as in Mary, V as in Victor, Freedom 1776 @gmail.com. Again, MV Freedom 1776 @gmail.com. My physical mailing address is Post Office Box 402 Atglen, it's ATGLEN, Pennsylvania 19310. Again, I sincerely thank you for taking the time to listen to me.